All right, let's talk about something that is actively trying to rewire your brain, probably without you even noticing it. And no, it's not some new technology, it's a very old art form, propaganda. And getting a handle on how it actually works today might just be one of the most crucial mental skills you can possibly have.
So let's just start with a quick question. When I say the word propaganda, what's the first image that pops into your head? No, seriously, take a second. Picture it. Got some? Okay, let's see how close you were. So if you were picturing something like what you see on the left, old wartime posters, big obvious slogans, maybe a dictator yelling on TV, you're not exactly wrong, but that's the amateur stuff. The real professional-grade propaganda, the stuff that's truly effective, it doesn't look like propaganda at all. It looks like what's on the right. It's the news article you just scrolled past, that viral video everyone's sharing, or even just a common-sense idea that everybody seems to agree on. The whole point is for it to be invisible. By the time you feel it, it's already done its job.
So how does that even happen? Well, to get propaganda, you first have to get how your own brain forms beliefs. See, it doesn't target your intelligence, and it doesn't really care about your logic. It goes after something much more fundamental, the shortcuts your brain is absolutely designed to take.
The amazing psychologist Daniel Kahneman figured out that we basically have two operating systems in our head. System 2 is your deep thinking, analytical mind. It's slow, it takes a lot of effort, and honestly, it's exhausting, which is why we avoid using it whenever we can. So most of our lives, we are running on System 1. That's our autopilot. It's fast, emotional, and totally effortless. It's our default setting, and it is exactly where propaganda gets to work.
And this leads us to this fascinating little glitch in our mental software called the illusory truth effect. It's incredibly simple, but it is so powerful. Basically, the more times you hear something, the more familiar it feels, and your brain makes a critical mistake. It confuses that feeling of familiarity with a feeling of truth. It's why a commercial jingle gets stuck in your head. And it's why a political slogan, even one that sounds completely ridiculous at first, starts to feel kind of plausible after you've heard it 100 times. Repetition just drills right past reason and creates belief.
So let's get into the single most reliable, most powerful play in the entire propaganda playbook. I mean, this one has been used in just about every major campaign in history. And it's all about one thing: creating an enemy.
Now this works for a very deep psychological reason. At our core, we are tribal creatures. For almost all of human history, your survival depended on belonging to a group. Getting cast out was a death sentence. So we're hardwired with this ancient instinct to always know who's us and who's them. Propaganda simply hijacks this primal code. It creates a threat, or just magnifies one that's already there, and points a finger at an outgroup. The target can change, but the basic wiring it exploits never does.
And this quote just nails the consequence. The moment that threat feels real, our higher-level thinking just shuts down. That logical system 2 we talked about, it goes completely offline. When you're in that state of fear, asking a critical question doesn't feel smart. It feels like you're betraying your tribe. A brain that's afraid is a brain that's easy to control.
So we have these timeless psychological soft spots. For most of history, though, exploiting them on a massive scale was really hard and really expensive. Propaganda basically had a distribution problem, and then technology solved that problem with terrifying efficiency.
I mean, really think about that for a second. In the old days, a propagandist had to physically take over the printing presses and the radio towers. Today, they just have to understand how to feed the algorithm. These systems do the exact same job as a state propaganda ministry, but they do it automatically, they do it personally for millions of people, and they do it 24/7.
And here's the feedback loop. It's shockingly simple. An algorithm's only goal is to keep you looking at the screen. So it learns what gets a strong emotional reaction out of you, and it turns out fear and outrage are the most reliable triggers by far. Then, it just feeds you more of that, and more, because emotional people stay engaged, and engagement is profitable. The result? You get a system that, with no evil genius in charge, automatically creates the perfect environment for propaganda: constant repetition, high emotion, and an endless supply of enemies.
Okay, let's make this really concrete, because these aren't just abstract ideas. They have had absolutely devastating consequences in the real world. And to see that, we have to look at history's most studied and most terrifying example.
Now, the thing that is so important to remember here is that 1930s Germany was not some undeveloped medieval country. It was a modern, deeply educated, democratic society. It had some of the best universities in the world, a thriving culture. So the question that we have to wrestle with is, how did a society like that fall into industrial-scale murder?
It didn't happen overnight.
It happened in a series of small, gradual steps, and each one probably seemed almost justifiable at the time. First, you tap into a genuine fear, and the Great Depression was a very real, very scary thing. Then you give that complex fear a simple human target. You blame a specific group. After that, you slowly, almost boringly, take control of the media. And then the final step. You change the language. You start talking about the target group in ways that make violence seem first imaginable, then normal, and then necessary. Propaganda walks everyone down a very dark path, one tiny step at a time.
Okay, after all of that, we get to the most important question, right? What can any of us actually do about it? How do we build up our own mental defenses against this kind of manipulation?
So the honest truth is nobody's completely immune. The psychological tricks we've been talking about, they work on everybody, even the experts who study them. But, and this is the really good news, you can absolutely build mental habits that make you a much, much harder person to manipulate.
So here are 3 of the best strategies you can use. First, it's called pre-bunking. It's basically what we're doing right now. Just understanding the techniques like the illusory truth effect makes your brain way better at spotting them out in the wild. Second, you have to learn to be comfortable with uncertainty. Propaganda loves to offer simple, clean answers for messy, complex problems. Just being able to say, you know what, I don't know, makes you a really tough target. And third, you have to deliberately step outside your information bubble. Not to go start an argument, just to see how the exact same world can look completely different from another perspective.
So really, the whole point of this isn't to make you paranoid or to get you to trust nothing. It's the complete opposite. It's about empowerment. It's about understanding the quirks of your own mind so that you are the one who's consciously in the driver's seat of your own beliefs.
And so that brings us to one last question for you to think about. Based on everything we've just covered, the need for it to be invisible, the way it targets your emotions, the endless repetition, where do you see the most effective propaganda operating in your world right now? Really think about it. Because learning to see it is the first and most important step to breaking free.